approaches. So as we already seen our previous video, there were 4 types of approach from parent to child communication. Similarly, in child to parent communication, we have total 3 types of approach. All are almost same, but little bit tweaks are there. That's why I categorize into three categories. So first approach is you are calling the parent method using the simple event. In this, we just trigger an event, it's called the parent. Second approach is you are calling the parent using an event with data. This time you are triggering the event but passing the data along with it. And the third approach is event bubbling, in which will change little bit configuration and by which the event start bubble. We will look into all 3 approach one by one. So we'll start with calling parent using simple event in the some of the standard events we already use in our previous videos like on click, on change, key up, key press. These all events are the standard events. But when we want to communicate from child to parent, we should know the custom events. The custom events are the events that we create ourselves. Okay. So let's go and see how to create and dispatch an event. These are the custom event syntax. Okay. So the syntax is first you call the new operator and the constructor name is custom event, and the first argument that you pass is the event name, and after that in the object format you will pass the options. We'll not go into the options right now. We'll see whenever it's required. I'll explain you about that. So basic thing is you need to create a event name, and the event name has some conventions, right? Naming conventions. So event name can only be string. No uppercase letter is required or allowed. No spaces are allowed. Use underscore to separate the word, but I would suggest don't even use the underscores. Always try your event name to be smaller case and string. So once your event is created, then you want to dispatch it. To dispatch it, our syntax is event target dot dispatch event and the event you have created. You pass into the dispatch event method. In our case of LWC, event target is a this. So this gives us the component event target, right? Like we have used this dot template dot query selector. Similarly, here we're going to use this dot dispatch event, and then you pass your event that you have created. Okay, so this is the syntax how you create and dispatch the event. Let's go to our VS Code and see this in a real time. So I'm in my VS Code now. I need to create some components. So this time we're going to create a component C2P from child to parent. I'll say C2P parent component, O small, and enter. Will create the parent component. And the second component I'm going to use as a child is the model component. So I'll create another component, C2P model component. Okay. So now I have two components, C2P parent, C2P model. So in the parent component, first of all, we go and quickly create the lightning card with the title child to parent communication, the standard design that we are using, otherwise our component will not look good on the screen of Salesforce. And after that I'll say this dot class div class and SLDS. I'm giving margin around M. Now here I want to do something, right? And in the model component I want my model to be there. So first of all what we're going to do, we'll copy the model code, and for that I'll go to the SLDS library, Lightning Design System library, search for model and hit enter. Now here on the right hand side you can see different types of model option. I'll select the small model. I'll copy the whole code. You can click this button to copy it, and I'll come and paste the code here as it is. I'll just try to align this little bit. So I'll just do the formatting, and I don't want this whole code. So what I'm gonna do here is within the header tag I'll remove everything except the h2 tag. Okay, so this is my header which will say model header. Then in the p tag, the main tag, that is this SLDS model content, I'll remove one p tag. I'll keep only one p tag, and I'll write the custom tag here. You can write successfully created, sort of something, some message we are adding to the model. Okay. And in the footer there are two buttons. I can keep it single button, so I'll remove one button, I'll keep one button and change its name to OK. So when the models open, so it should show heading as confirmation, something, anything you can give, and in the body I'm showing successfully created, and in the footer I have single button that is called OK. Okay, so this is the model right now, and I'll go to the parent tag and I'll call this child component there. So I'll call this component C-CP model component. So you already know how to compose the components. And now we want to change the targets. I'm gonna add the targets. I need only app page, not the home page. So I embed the component into the parent, my model component, and model I just copy paste from the SLDS library, and you can copy paste as it is. I just change few things, like I just change the header name from model header to confirmation. I'll change the body. I'll remove everything from the body and give my custom text that is successfully created, and the button is OK. That's it. So let's deploy both of them. So the components is deployed. Let's go to our org, hit the page, quickly place our component. Here it is CP. Let's drag this into the center column. Save this. Now you see automatically on the page load it's showing us confirmation successfully created and OK, and click of OK, nothing is happening, right? So we don't want this behavior. We want some action from the parent that will load this child, and on click of OK again will pass an event to parent to close this model. Okay, so I'll come to the parent. We already know how to hide the child. We gonna use template if true. We are using if true directive show model. Whenever this property becomes true, then only load the model. So I'll cut this model component and I place it inside the if true directive. And I'll go to my JS file. I'll create this property show model, and I initialize it with the value false. So it means by default this model will not be visible. Above this, I'll create a button that will make this show model property to true. So for that, I'll create the button and I'll say lightning button. I'll say label. Label I can say show model, and I can add the event on click of this model, click handler. I'm adding a click handler to my button, and in the JS file I'll create a method click handler. As soon as you click the event, what we're gonna do is we'll say show model, make it true, right? So what will happen now on the page load, model will not be visible. As soon as you click on the button, it will make the property show model true and the model loads. Let's quickly verify this as well, and then we'll write our child to parent simple event. So I refresh the page now, and now you can see the button is there. If I click this button, you can see model is there, but right now this model is a child component, and on click of OK nothing is happening, but I want to tell parent to close this model, right? So let's go and write the code for that now. So this is the real-time scenario in the project you're gonna do. So now you want to pass something, or you want to tell to the parent do this on a particular action. So in our case, we want to tell parent close the model. Okay, on click of OK button. So I'll go to the model component HTML. I'll create a on click on the OK button, and I'll say close handler. I'll give this name close handler. You can give OK handler as well. Any name is fine. So will call on click of OK close handler. But how our parent get to know that this button has been called? So we're gonna create a custom event now, right? To create the custom event, I'll say const. I can say my event. Any name you can give. Okay, and we'll say the syntax to create the custom event: new custom event constructor and your event name. As I said, event name should be always string, always lowercase, right? So I'll give this name close. Never give your event name on close on something. Okay, on keyword is always used when you use the custom event in the HTML. Okay, I'll show you in a minute. So I'll give the event name close. My event is created. I want to dispatch this event. For that, I'm gonna do this dot to this event. So I'll go to the parent and I'll tell in my child component tags, I'll say on close. So this close is the event name that you're dispatching. So the close is there, right? So whenever you use some event in the HTML, it's always start with on. That's why I was telling you, don't give your custom event name on close. Okay, otherwise you have to write on close. Okay, so I say on close, call this method. So which method you want to call? You can say close handler. Any name you can give, and this method should be present in your JS file of your parent. I'll create this. I'll say whenever OK button gets called, it will call the HTML, and HTML will call the on close, and on close will call the close handler, and close handler will receive the event, and it will say this dot show model, make it false. Okay, let's deploy this now. In meantime, I'll explain you again. So we create the method close handler that's get called on click of OK button of the model. Once the close handler gets called, we create an event with the name close, and then we dispatch the event. As soon as you dispatch the event, it goes wherever you have used this model component. It comes to here. It will say, okay, there is a attribute attached to the model component tags. It will say, okay, it start with the on. It means it's an event. Listen to that event, and the event name is close. So which on calling of this event, which method you want to call? I said close handler. It will come to the JS file. It will call the JS close handler, and this dot show model becomes false. So let's go and see if on click of OK now the model is getting closed or not. Now you can see that the button is there, and I clicked on the button, the model gets popped up, and on click of OK it's went off. So our parent to child and child to parent, everything is working fine, right? So here on click of OK, child, that is model component, triggering an event and telling to the parent call my method and close me. So this is how the simple, we already seen how we can trigger an event. I'm going to the same component. So in the model component, we trigger an event, that is close handler, that call our close event, and that triggers and call the close handler of the parent component and close the model. Now what I want is, I want to pass the data along with this event. Okay, so to do that, there is a second argument to this method, is an object. We called it as a options. Here you can pass a property called detail. Just remember this is a standard property. You can pass the data using with the event using the detail property only. Okay, so this is a keyword you can think of. You can't use name, x, y, z. It should be detail keyword only. Okay, And if you want to pass some data, you just attach it directly. So I'll say hello from child, hello from model, or we can say model closed successfully. This message will pass to parent. Okay. Now the flow will be remain same. On click of OK, we trigger the event, will pass the data, and parent will receive it. Here on close, it call the close handler. So as soon as it call the close handler, we want to extract the data that he is passing, right? It is an event, so it will receive an event, and in the event it's passing the data in the form of, I'll say, let message equal to event dot detail. So it's passing the data in the form of detail. So we are extracting the data from event dot detail. That's it. So I can do one thing. I can show the data on the screen. So I'll say there is a property message, and whenever I'll get the data, I'll show that property on the screen. This dot message equal to event dot detail, and I'll go to the HTML, and below the button I'll say message. Okay, let's deploy this and see. So right now I'm passing the basic string here directly. You can pass the object or any complex data as well. Okay, so let's go to our page, press the page. Approach are almost same, all the three approaches, right? Whether a simple data with event or event bubbling, but you need to understand the actual difference when to use what, right? So now if I click show model, model open, on click of OK, now it should print some text below our button. So now you see it immediately prints model closed successfully. It means it received the data and print the data. So this is how you pass the data. If you want to pass some complex data, you can create an object. You can say name model, or you can say message here directly. Message is model closed successfully. Then in the parent, you have to call it as event.detail.message. Okay, let's deploy this and verify this approach as well. Let's refresh the page. So below the button, no text is there. I'll open the model. I click OK. Now see, again the same message coming. This time we are passing in the form of object. We are passing in the form of object. Likewise, you can pass whether a boolean or you want to pass it as a string, number, object, array of object, any form you can pass it. Okay. So this is the basic example that I showed you how you can pass the data with the event. Communication using event bubbling. So in Lightning Web Component, we have two types of event propagation. First is the bubbles and the second is the compost. So bubble is a boolean value indicating whether the event bubbles up through the DOM or not. By default it's false, so it means the event will not bubbles to the DOM. And their second property is the compost, a boolean value that indicates whether the event can pass through the shadow boundary, default it to false. We're not gonna learn about compose because compose has many drawbacks and I don't want somebody to use it. Okay, so you can achieve everything with a simple event and event with data. I don't even use bubbles, but it's good to know from the interview point of view what is bubbling. So I'll show you. We call it as property name is bubbles, but the phase is called bubbling. Okay, so I'll give you a basic example through this diagram. I created a button, click me. That button has a on click method. Okay, the on click event handler. Button has a parent div has a on click, and that div has another div that has another method on show or something. Okay, so whenever your the child component is button, and the if you see this two label, so this light shades and the yellow one are the child component and the dark green is the parent component. So if I click on the button, I just click on the button. If that button has any events on top of it, it means the parent element has any event that gets triggered, which means the event start bubbling. Bubbling means floating from bottom to the top, and it's calling all the events that are coming across while floating to the top. right? So that is called event bubbling. We already gone through a real-time example of event bubbling in a JavaScript section, right? So this is how event bubbling works. So if X will trigger, then event bubbled, it called the second event, then it will bubble and it called the third event. And to do that, right, by default these are false, right? So while creating the custom event, along with the details, we have another property bubbles and the compose. If you make it explicitly true, then this process occurs. Okay, so that your event can float from bottom to the top. I'll show you an example for bubbling. We're not going to talk about compose. Okay, real time will never use compose. So let's go to our VS Code. I'll go into the same example that we have seen. So into the child component of the model, what I want is whenever I'll click the OK, I want to make this bubble true. So the options is bubbles. If I pass this property bubbles true, it means this event will bubble. Okay, so it event will go to the top of the page, and while going top, if anywhere it finds the event as a parent, it will call that event basically. Okay, to make that event bubble, to prove you, I'll create another event on top of the button. I'll say on click footer event. I'll say footer handler. I can say footer handler, and I'll print the console inside this method. I'll say console.log footer event called. Okay, so this button has a parent footer handler. Similarly, if this component completes, this component also has some parent, right? So what we're gonna do here is we'll go to the parent component. I'll remove this handler from here, and this component has a parent, let's say this div. I'll attach that event handler to this div. Okay, so basically I'm trying to achieve the same funda like button has a on click and on click, and the outer parent also has that some method, right? So now what will happen is as I change the property bubbles true, as soon as this event trigger, it will start floating from bottom to top. It will say who is my parent, footer has some on click, yes, call this. It will start going up. Oh, section is my parent, section has some click, no, just go up, it comes here. It will see who is my parent, template has an event, no, it will go further. It will say div has some action, yes, on close, call close handler. So as soon as it call the close handler, it close the our model. Okay, so let's deploy this and see if this works or not. So basically event bubbling is floating of event from bottom to the top. Okay, so let's go to a page, refresh the page. So I'll open the console as well because we want to see the event bubbling. As soon as I click the show model, it trigger the event. It will print the footer event and then it will go to the top as well, right? So now I'll click the button. So on click of OK, we are calling the custom event. So I'll click this button. It call the footer event. So in the console, you can see it's printing footer handle called. It called the custom event. That event will go to the top and it will strikes here. Where it is here on close, that is attached to now on div because we are not attaching any on close to our model component. It call this, it immediately call this event, it received the message as well as is close the model. So this is how all things floats, and this is how event bubbling works. So these are the three approaches that we discuss in the couple of lectures by which you can communicate from child to the parent. So I hope this was pretty helpful for you